What is up, everyone?
Hey, hey.
We are live.
We
Thank you
live.
for tuning in. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook, Creative Finance Playbook. We out there right now, and we're having some fun.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where it's 21 degrees, 27. Whoa, it warmed up my day.
It's getting a little warm out.
But yeah, it's been a little bit, hi Josh, a little bit of a cold spell here. And, you know, the February funk is real upstate New York. It's just cold and snowy, and now we got pandemic. So don't leave your house, or you might, you know. So
Back in the day, at least we could do like a little mall walking or something,
mall
right?
walking. What is the mall, right?
Now, I mean, you gotta wear.
Hi, Bridget.
You still can. But.
Yeah. So I figured, you know, let's have some fun. We figured, ask Joe anything related to real estate. I've got a lot of great questions lined up, and then of course, if you're watching with us, by all means, ask away. And then also just anything about him. You know, he's got 43 years here of experience to share with us all, and I'm excited to get going. So thanks for tuning in. If you are here, say hello. Where are you from? What's
I'm
going
not that
on?
old. I'm only 43, so my experience in the younger half wasn't a whole lot. But I did learn a lot about real estate.
You've got so much to offer. Don't discredit yourself.
I know.
My goodness.
I know.
So let's get right into it. We do have 2 kids. So.
We're in gym class.
No, it was like a leadership class. But it's probably ending soon.
Well, good.
I don't know what that was. Okay. All right, so I wanted to start out with the loaded question here of you did it. You left your W-2 and you now do real estate full time. So let's hear it. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly. How is it? Is it what you imagined? Is there anything that you would do differently, or, you know, suggest that you do differently? Just kind of like tell us what goes on in your mind here when it comes to that.
Well, I think that, and I don't know any of these questions she's asking me because I don't want to know them up front. So these are all going to be blind to me as they are you guys. So I guess to answer that
It's
question,
the only way to do it.
you know, it's definitely been a great experience, and it's something that I've been wanting to do. Jen's been talking about it with myself. We've been talking about this for a long time, and once COVID kind of came into play, it made sense, and I left a very well-paying job, and it was a single income besides all of our properties. This is what our job was. Jen was a stay-at-home mom, used to be a teacher, and gave that up to raise our little ones. And with the job I had, I was making more than enough to be able to support all of that. So it made sense for us. There would have been no better person to raise our kids than her, being there when they get off the bus or any of those things. So we can make that happen.
The bus.
Now, it's a little bit different story because this has been 11 months, and I was typically making my past job close to $20,000 a month. And now we haven't gotten that paycheck in 11 months. However, we've been well prepared for this type of a thing for a long time. And I always said, even in my old job, is you gotta have a side hustle. You gotta start something else, because if you're
Mom life calls. So sorry, sweetie.
Okay.
Keep going.
But if you're looking for your employer to, you know, take care of you or to set you up for that big, you know, payday at the end, you're kind of, you might sell yourself short. You don't know. Luckily for me, I had a really good position, worked for the largest Chevy dealership in the country. I was head of finance. There's about 20 or so finance people I was in charge of, multiple locations, and we were about to buy another franchise, but they had 9 locations. My new job was to go open all those up. COVID comes into play, have a conversation with my doctor. He said it's not a good idea, probably not the best idea to sit in a small office talking to hundreds of people per month and all the meetings that we had to go to. So, and then go figure out that, you know, one of the people who were sitting in my seat got COVID. And so therefore, we made that jump to do this full time. And after doing it, I'm so glad we did, because we've learned a lot. We've grew immensely in this past year. And just where we were 1 year ago, I mean, it's almost, I can't believe it.
Would you say, what's the hardest part about this?
You got to manage yourself. You have to be well at managing yourself. And if you've had a manager role before in the past, that's helpful, but it's different when you're managing yourself still. So you have to be self-starter. You have to be motivated. You have to pick up that phone and take that phone call, because you can't have somebody else do it. So there's a lot of different things that you have to be a self-starter. And I've always been motivated because I've always wanted to have all of the things, as my wife will say, and that's long before I met her. And so with that being the case, I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges that I see for a lot of folks who do what we do, even full-time or part-time, is is doing all the things that you don't want to do.
Starting and then also keeping the momentum going. And that's why we are huge on mentoring and masterminding and just connecting and picking up the phone or, joining a live Q&A with somebody. And I see Bridget has a question for us, so I definitely want to get to that. So, that's definitely, I would say for me, the hardest part since you've come home is just what I just had to do, like backing, recognizing when you have to kind of like just shift gears because like the kids needed me and I see a teary-eyed 6-year-old and I'm like, oh gosh, what happened in leadership class? He can't find his paper and now class is over. But, it's just giving grace because I was connecting with another investor earlier, he's just like, I have no patience and I wasn't a teacher, so how do you do it? And I think for all of us who do have kids at home and we're trying to work from home right now, regardless of real estate or not, it's knowing that the kids are doing the best with what they have and we're doing the best with what we have and that there is no such thing as perfection. And the biggest advice I can say is have your kids fall in love with reading right now. Find books that they love. And if you have any questions about that, like I love to talk books. I used to be an English teacher, like Joe was saying. So don't put the pressure so much on the schoolwork. And I'm trying to not be so bad about that too, but also, just have them read books. Have them, if they can read well, the world opens up for them. I truly believe that. I got that from my mom. So side note there, but yeah, definitely give yourself grace, guys.
Yeah,
This is a crazy time.
But you gotta, I'm kind of a no excuse type person.
Yep.
And we've learned that from the
Balance.
corporate world, guys.
Yep.
And so it's results driven. And that's what motivates me, our results. So that's what we strive for. And how do we make that happen? Mm-hmm. It's having a streamlined process. And now you do your checks and balances to make sure everything's being done accordingly. Mm-hmm. You're always going to be tweaking what you do. You're always going to change what you do. It doesn't matter if you're the biggest, smallest, doesn't matter what company size you are. Maybe you're just a one-person operation. That's okay. You're still going to always be refining your process. And if you don't, you're going to be eventually fish out of water and be, it's just you always kind of want to work on that. So one of the questions I see is, can you seller finance a down payment? So I'm really not sure what that question means, Bridget, but as far as, do you mean like, can you have a down payment? You're gonna have to show that to a bank, and I see that's the second question is, will the banks allow that? So if I could get a little bit more clarification on that.
Maybe an example, yeah.
Yeah, or just, the other thing too, guys, what we are gonna start doing is some clubhouse events. And which is great. If you haven't been a part of Clubhouse, well, it's cool because we could all just get in a room.
He's on trend, you guys.
And we could all talk.
On it before I did.
We could talk real estate, and we're all in a room. And if you have questions, it's neat. It's all there's no video, but you get to come up on stage. And if you've got questions, we all could just sit there and talk about it. And I love talking about real estate. I love talking with other folks. So a lot of times how I met some of you were maybe just putting in some recommendations in a room because I'm a part of a lot of different groups who talk about real estate and giving advice. And, that's one of the things I love doing is giving back and helping other people. Maybe it's getting, your real estate game to another level, or maybe it's just getting your very first deal. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You can do it creative finance. You can do wholesaling, which we love. We got a lot of those going. We had a person who said he would take seller financing for a down payment, but not the entire purchase. So we would do a $50K down payment through him. So with the 50 grand down payments, I will tell you, a lot of times, big entry fees into deals will kill deals for us. We typically always want to buy with no money down when we're doing seller financing. And we make that really well known into when we're talking with a seller. Now, in some circumstances, have we done down payments? We sure have. And I would definitely think there's a few different ways to get around that. Now, with the down payment, I usually try to work it where if the seller has a lot of equity, I just ask them, if you have some flexibility onto when you could get paid your equity, I'll take over the maintenance, the repairs, the taxes, utilities, so you could just walk away. And when I get it cashed out later on down the road, you're gonna have that big chunk of money coming to you. And if you just ask them that question, a lot of times they might just say, that's fine, I could do that. Some circumstances, they need the money right now. Some circumstances, they're okay with waiting to get the money. We've got a lot of those deals. Now, the ones that need it right away, it could be a challenge sometimes depending on what it is. So some thought processes are.
So do you think she's talking about like a wrap or a sub two?
Yeah, they have a seller who will sell it with seller financing, their house. But it seems like to me, but not the entire purchase. So they would want a down payment of $50,000. Is the seller would want $50,000 down is how I would understand that. And if that's the case and they do want $50,000 down, you would have to find either a tenant buyer who would and that's all relative depending on the price of the house. Is it a $1 million house? Is it a $100,000 house? Because if it's $50,000 and a $100,000 house, that's half down. We tell them no deal. You might as well want the whole thing down at that point. If we get away with maybe a couple grand down, that's a different story. Or if not, sometimes those deals just don't work, and that's okay. Now, if it's a $400,000 or $500,000 house, maybe it's a $500,000 house, because there's some parts of the country where a $500,000 house doesn't even get you a whole lot, depending on where you live. So if it's a $500,000 house and they want $50,000 down, and it's roughly 10%, you might have a good chance of finding a tenant buyer in that area who would do that.
So it might be if it's an expensive house out there.
Yeah, so it can be an option. And the way to do that is just let your buyer know that you're going to be working with some partners on the deal, and you're going to be looking for a tenant buyer.
$300K house.
Yeah, okay, so
what he always says too is it has to be a win for you, the buyer, and then it's got to be a win for the end buyer too if you have a tenant buyer, and then a win for the seller. So, just because they say seller financing, it might not work. And I know it's really hard when you're getting into the creative financing and you're hearing some yeses, and that was really hard for our team too, because they bring us a deal and we're like, the numbers don't work, it's like crushes their spirit. But it's like you got to keep going because it just means another.
But you know what? And that's the good thing though, because you've made it that far.
Yeah.
You've actually talked to a seller who's willing to take terms. So if you make a deal or not, you've just retained so much value in the process that you just did. That's huge.
And they could come down. We've had that happen where
absolutely.
What they want versus what they need are two entirely different things. And once you start educating and explaining, not over their heads, but just a little bit, they might understand a little bit better.
Yeah, and the way we just do that,
force it.
I'll be quite honest with you. I just say, hey, if the seller's name is John or Bob, I'll just say, hey, John, we typically buy with no money down, okay? And oh no, I need a down payment. Okay, well, because you've already set the bars. I typically buy with no money down. You've already set the bar that he's understanding in his head. You normally do 0 down. So if he was originally thinking 50, he might not say 50. He might say a whole lot less because he knows you typically buy with no money down. So
that comes with confidence and the more deals you do too, I would say.
No, it's following a script. Just read. It's that easy. If you follow the script and read what it says and just do that.
And I'm not arguing with you, but if somebody is brand new to the game, you have to put your feet in their shoes because not everybody's you, my love. But yes, it is following the script, but it's also having that confidence and belief in what you're saying. So yes, you're reading the script, but you're like firmly believing it too. So it's not like, I typically buy nothing down, okay?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely how you say it too. And you're going to have to be confident in the conversation that you're having. But if you stick to your scripts, if you ask the questions, get back to answers, have them make you the offer, that's the real key to the negotiation. And that's why if you listen to all master negotiators, they all say the same thing. Nobody wants to say the first number. And that's typically how it goes. So they will ask a lot of questions. And they're going to want to get the information. So that's what you really want to just work on, is asking the right questions, get back the answers, see if that would work for the seller and for you. And if that makes sense, then you proceed. If it doesn't make sense, maybe you have to fine-tune it. You try to fine-tune it. And if it still doesn't work, follow back up in 30 days because time and circumstances may change their mind. Always leave on a good note. If you're talking to sellers and they're getting mad at you, you need to work on that, because sometimes I've heard some really just tough conversations, and you really want to be, smiling on the phone, happy. And if it doesn't work out, see you later, sir. Have a great day. Even if they're cranky, still have a great day.
Yeah.
So that's really a good key, I think, will be helpful.
Hi, Kyle from Indiana, and we got Judd and Brittany and a whole bunch of people on here. So
what's going on, gang?
All right. Let's go with a fun question. Not that these aren't fun, but like non-real estate. What is your favorite place on earth?
Wow.
First thing that pops in your head.
At first I think tropical islands.
Yeah.
I think tropical islands, but then I think, obviously I think anywhere with you.
Oh,
It was the first thing that
Valentine's Day is coming, guys.
But I love the tropics.
No,
so
we do.
summer beaches, really, really nice water. I love that. So
Okay. I agree with that. I love the beaches too. I miss traveling. We used to travel a lot, and one day we'll get back to it. All right. Would you ever just rent a property now that you are Mr. Rent to Own? Would you simply rent?
no. Nope. My landlording, it was in my blood. My father was, grandfather was. I'm the one that's going to cut that cord because we did landlording and it was really just not what you'd hope. It's okay when we had one house. It really was fine because we had a one single family home. Something went wrong, we could go fix it. Obviously not a big deal.
Yeah, once we hit 4 or 5, it was just...
You just have a lot going on. And then once you start getting to double digits and then getting higher double digits, then it just gets to be a lot more to take care of. And, we paid $100 last winter. It was 10 degrees in our area in the middle of wintertime. We've got one rental right now.
One rental.
And when that renter moves out, it's definitely going to go up for rent own. And we're going to put a tenant buyer in there. But the tenant who was living there last year calls us and says, my furnace isn't working. Now that's a good furnace in the house, so I was kind of surprised. And I said, did you change the thermostat or did you change the battery? Oh yeah, I changed the battery, it doesn't work. I said, okay, well, I had to go to my day job.
It was Saturday, so...
It was a Saturday, so she calls up whatever company, because they come over. It's $100 service charge just to go check it out.
Walk in.
And the guy calls and says, yeah, well, she had the battery in backwards. So the battery died in the thermostat.
I didn't want to call him to tell him that, you guys, because I was fielding the phone call, and I'm like, he's going to lose his mind.
So we paid $100 to have some guy go to our house, take a battery out, reverse it, and put it back in there, because the first one died. When she replaced it, she didn't put it in the right way and didn't think to check it, or $100 later.
Stuff happens, but yeah, you get... rentals are a little more work like that, whereas rent to own is okay, well, we can give you a name and a number, but handle that. So.
And we don't ever get the call. That's the neat thing about it. We
don't.
very rarely ever get a call about anything rent to own because we're very upfront and we very well let them know that you're responsible for the maintenance, the repairs, the utilities, already like you already own the house.
Homeowner mindset makes a world of a difference, and you wouldn't think it would, but it really truly does.
Yeah, so our clients are way different, and once you kind of see the difference between the two, you definitely, I never turn back. So, if we were to ever buy buildings, then I could see
you can't
that
really rent to own a unit.
You could do condos in a building.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking like, downtown Park Ave, you got like a big building down there.
Yes. So, you can run into some situations like that, but, in the foreseeable future, renting is, just not up my alley. And because if you start digging into, property management companies, and they're great, but that starts getting so much of the profit.
Yeah.
Which
they're fantastic if that's what if you've got multiple big unit properties, or and you're maybe doing this on the side or something,
right? And
you don't have time yet to grow your own property management. There's definitely awesome companies out there, but you got to keep that in mind with cash flow and everything. So.
Yeah, and great question here. How did you choose your market?
Target market.
So, first we started where we live, right? We live in upstate New York, we live in Rochester, so we started here. And because I knew the areas, and with rent to own, the one thing is what we really work on are what I almost look at as recession-proof housing. And what's that? Recession-proof houses is the middle of the range houses. I'm not dealing with houses that are in super high crime areas, and I'm not dealing with the super high-end houses that are taking a really long time and are hard to sell because it's such a small clientele that could afford them. So in our area, the median household is probably $140,000, $150,000. So we like to stay in that $200,000 to $75,000 range. It's really the sweet spot because the majority of the folks who are looking for their very first home, that's what they're looking for. So how do I choose our target market? I stay out of war zones. I don't go into high crime areas. And then, when we start getting into some of the bigger properties, the more expensive. Now we live in a Finger Lake region. Now if we were going to buy a $1 million home, I wouldn't do it in just a normal town, but the Finger Lakes are very red hot always, and if you have a property in the Finger Lakes, you're never going to have an issue selling it if it's beautiful. So if you're going to do that, that's the area I would target for that. So where we do is I look for areas that have got good school districts. I look for areas where folks who maybe want to move out of a rougher area and want to take their kids to a good school district and to a nicer neighborhood, and maybe they need that time to, get all the stuff ready for a mortgage. And it's not always credit based. There's a lot of other reasons too. We've got some of our folks that have very good credit in our rent-own programs. So it's not just based on that, but some folks who want to move into a house, and our closing term is about a week. You say, I love the house, you're moving in a week later. So those are the reasons why we target those areas and really, really like them. So then since then, we've moved all of the state of New York, all of the state of Pennsylvania, because what we realized is we could do all of this virtually. And just looking on all the different tools, like we have a deal right now that we're doing in Albany. It's 3.5 hours from us. We've never seen this house, all through pictures. We've got deals in Pennsylvania, all over Pennsylvania. Never seen these houses in person, all virtually. We've got houses in New York. It's the same thing. So
it took us a little while to get our feet wet, though. I mean, when he was working full time, the thought of investing across New York State was just not even, we were just not ready for that. We really wanted to, keep local. But then when we realized we had the time now to do a little more research, expand and connect, and Facebook is obviously our best friend, and there's so many ways to connect with other investors in those areas. It's just the doors have opened wide open.
Yeah. And yes, Cayuga Lake is awesome.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful area. So
there's also a question up here about best time of day to call someone if you have a lead.
So, I am more of a 10 o'clock till probably noonish in my favorite time slot.
I thought you were going to say as soon as the lead comes in.
Well, that. If you have a lead that maybe, yes, you hit it right. Is it somebody who reached out to you?
Like if you did a direct mailing and then they called you, like pick that call right up or call them right back.
And she hit it right in the head, because that's the case. We have the cup of coffee theory in what we do.
Guys, we've lost deals that way if they just sit.
If you have a lead that comes into you, and if you were to get a cup of coffee and put it down on the countertop, how long would it take that coffee to get cold? Your cellar to get cold in that same time frame?
We're not talking Yeti cups here, okay, friends? Like, the Yeti will keep it hot forever. It's not that. We're like normal. He brings me a cup of coffee in a ceramic mug, right? Like, those get cold quick.
So if it's a lead that maybe you've received a tip from somebody, or maybe it's from some marketing that you've done where you've maybe pulled a list and you have a lead, I like that 10 o'clock on. Let them get their morning routine on, get the kids going, breakfast going. Maybe they got to run out to work, whatever it is. So 10 o'clock in the morning to me is business time. It's not too early, but also if they don't answer, it still gives me a lot more times throughout the rest of the day to try to get a hold of them. I don't try to do it too late typically, because if I'm calling at 7 o'clock and they don't answer, well then what am I gonna do, call them at 10 o'clock at night? It doesn't give me much more time for that day.
Yeah.
So I like that 10 to noon.
And it's tricky because if somebody works full time and let's say they're a teacher or have an office job where they just can't be with their phone, then 10 to 12 might not work, but they could try to call you back on the lunch break. So it's a lot of try different times and then just keep calling and texting. And texting is beautiful because sometimes you can get away with texting at your job and not getting on the phone and just connecting.
And that's the point. If you get on a text message, and we've done that so many times where we've said, hey, is texting better? And they might just say, oh yeah, I can text. I'm totally fine with texting. There we go. Or if they say, hey, now's not a good time, and they text you, at least now you've had communication and you can set up a time to talk and they know who you are. So that's always a good thing too. And then if they ghost you, there's different fun ways to get a hold of them too, or to get them to get a hold of you.
The FI 585 region is awesome. I'd also say Syracuse. There's a lot of opportunity there. You just need to, kind of learn the areas a little bit, but there's...
Actually, to be quite honest with you, I love the Albany market.
They're just saying it's very expensive.
Yeah, I love that because it's with creative financing, the cost levels really don't make much of a difference.
That's true. And then you can wholesale too.
And the same thing with wholesale. And the wholesale deal that we have in Albany is actually in Clifton Park, which is a really nice area. The ARV on the house is $425,000. The seller reached out to us. We didn't reach out to him. He found us, and
it was almost too easy finding a buyer. I mean, his phone wouldn't stop ringing.
Unbelievable.
For as soon as he put it in a couple and of course he had some negative Nancy's. Oh, you're asking way too much. And
well, that was on Facebook, guys. The Facebook people don't really need to know. This was a single family home built, I think it was about 20 something years ago, and it's in a ritzy area. We were picking that up for $222, and it's a $425,000 house. Now we're wholesaling that house to another investor. We're actually closing that tomorrow.
Oh my God,
which is gonna, yeah. So
like the deal that never ended.
well, the neat thing was the house is vacant for years. It was through an estate.
So happy to be able to help him.
The son who has the house, he had to really have his hand held through the process. When I put that house on Facebook and a couple of groups, all the armchair experts, oh, that's way too much money from the house.
The armchair expert?
Yeah, and then the minute I put it onto like Zillow and things like that, where actually investors will find you, my phone wouldn't stop ringing.
I thought the sellers were coming in off of Facebook too.
I mean, a little bit, but
Okay.
mostly Zillow was nonstop people calling me to the point where I had to take it down. I had the thing sold the minute I put it up on Zillow. And a cash buyer. Now we're friends. We chat often, and the neat thing about it is when we have more deals in that Albany area, I've got my cash buyer already lined up, and these guys are pretty good and heavy hitters. They do a lot of deals.
Yeah, it was like one of those, we're gonna find our next house with this kind of process with creative financing, and we keep saying like if this were like closer to us, we would have bought this and
Totally
flipped it ourselves and lived in it. It was beautiful. It is beautiful. It just needs some love.
Yeah, because that deal, we would be able to buy that for $222. Closing costs were going to be probably another $4 or $5 grand, probably $5 grand in our area. And then we would probably go put in there. The outside's nice, landscaping need to be done. The inside, we can make that absolutely sick in the inside for probably 60 grand, 70,000. And you're living in a $425,000 house for $300,000.
Yeah,
guys.
Great school district. But those are our favorite. Those are our favorite houses.
Yeah.
Like it's a little, more than some of the ones we've done out here, but definitely.
But that's the point with creative finance.
Do that.
You could actually, with higher end houses, if you're in an area that supports higher end, this gets more fun because your checks are a lot bigger. And so if you're not coming up with money and you're leveraging your mind and leveraging paper and controlling real estate with just using paper instead of actually money or credit, I love those more expensive areas. So, and actually the reason why I love Albany is a migration map of New York State shows that area has still a heavy migration moving into the area where a lot of folks from New York are.
Where did you find a migration map?
Google migration map 2020 New York State.
Okay, I want to do that in my spare time.
I do that stuff, guys. That's what I do.
That's why we're a great team. Bridget, have you ever come across a multi-family home where the seller wants to seller finance? Yes. We don't typically do seller financing.
Well, so the thing is, we don't want to be landlords. So yes, we have.
But you got to remember, landlords are going to know this lingo. They're going to understand it, and they're probably going to, I don't want to say more apt to do it, but they're really going to be interested in hearing what you have to offer, especially now.
And that's the thing. So if you have a multi-unit, you also could buy those on creative financing. That's the blessing of what we do. So if you have that deal, and maybe what we say is you want to take it down yourself, and what I mean by that is you want to buy it for yourself, and you could work out the terms with the seller, absolutely. Once again, we buy with no money down, okay? Get a good deal on the property. And then at that point, even if they have debt or not, you can still make that deal work. And then the nicest thing about it is, you'll get the appreciation, you get to write off the depreciation and have some cash flow. Now, if you decide, hey, listen, this is a 5-unit building and I'm not really set up to do this, because you have a house or an apartment house or building, you can now sell that to other investors.
Yes.
And you build extra value in the property by having it on terms. So what I mean by that is if it's a $300,000 building and this owner says, I will sell it to you on terms, and he says, I need 10 grand down. Well, typically you would need 20% down if you're an investor. So that's $60,000 you need to come up with plus closing costs. So you're probably looking at $60,000, $70,000. Where now if I can offer that on terms to a maybe potential landlord, and maybe they don't need that $60,000 to $70,000 down. I have to pay the seller 10 grand because that's what he needs. They're gonna have to pay closing costs, so it's $5-6 grand, and then I'm gonna want my $20,000, and I'm not gonna charge them $300,000. I'm gonna sell that property for $325,000, seller financing available, and your phone will start ringing off the hook. And then you say it's $325,000. I need $50,000 down or $20,000, whatever your number is. You take your assignment fee. You're gonna give your seller a little bit of money if they need it. Sometimes they don't. Have them pay closing costs, and then you assign that deal to somebody else. Those are wonderful deals.
But some people watching might want to keep those.
Yeah, you might.
Because that was one of my next questions here, as far as some of the popular terms. House hacking. And,
The only way to do house hacking is if you could buy the house on terms, so you're not using your own credit. Because, we had one of our houses catch on fire, guys.
Yeah.
We've had all types of situations happen because we've been doing this so long. Now, one thing about it, which is nice, is not having your own credit tied to property. And if you're leaving cash in the deal, which we don't leave money in real estate, we just don't do it. So that's why we really love that seller finance model. But great ways to make money doing that. There's great ways in wholesaling too. So there's a lot of great options with real estate. We're not just a one way only type of investors.
So why do you think BRRRR has become so popular?
It's not very hard to do. It's a way to scale, and she knows, but some of you may not. We started doing that in 2008, right when the market was really taking a big crash. In our area, it was really a buyer's market, and you could get some really good deals. And so we found some really good scores. And
back when you can go to the MLS and find something.
And with my day job,
back in the day,
I had some really good paychecks, and I had a lot of money saved. So the thought process was we could just pay cash for the house, pay cash for the rehab, refinance it out, and then once we pay back all of the initial investment, we're also going to have some extra money we could take out of there, and that's tax-free money. So there's plenty of times where, if we have it all invested into a deal, $60,000, we could take 70 out of it. And that extra $10,000, you're not paying income tax on that because you're just refining your equity. So that was a great way to build a larger amount of cash. And with that large amount of cash gives you the opportunity to do more projects and refinance them. But then what happens is this: when you do that BRRRR and you're going to go to a bank to refinance it, there's two types of banks or lending institutions. Now, I was in this field for 15 years. I know banks just as good as bankers do. They will report it to your credit report. Most of them do. There are some exceptions to that rule, where if you have a house that you're going to go buy and you're going to put that on your credit report, you're going to have that debt weighed against you. When you're going to go buy anything else, that debt is weighing against you, guys, and they're going to look at your debt to income. So what's going to happen is you could put it into an LLC, is the smartest way to do it for your protection, just in case you do have that lawsuit. Remember, we had a house burned down.
And we just had somebody fall on a property, years ago. So you never know. You always want to protect yourself. It's really smart to get an LLC, and it's not that expensive, right?
No, it's about we do them ourselves, and they're about $800, $900 in New York. Every state's a little bit different, but they're usually close to that. But the neat thing about it is if you signed with your company and you're personally guaranteeing that, like what we used to do, some banks will still report that to your credit, others will not.
Right.
And if they don't, then it doesn't impact your credit score. And if they do report it to your credit, you BRRRR once, and then you BRRRR twice, and then you BRRRR 3 times, and you've got 3 properties on your credit report, plus maybe your personal property, one of them you live in, or so now you're going to have hundreds, potentially millions of dollars of debt on your credit report. It drops your score down because your credit report does not know your income. All it looks at is debt. And when you start getting the massive amounts of debt, it does affect your credit score. So therefore, BRRRR will start affecting your real life. And when you maybe want to go to a car dealership and pick up a new car, or there's a credit card that's 0%, well, maybe your credit score is not high enough and you don't qualify.
Or you do walk away from your W-2 and you don't have that income source anymore. Don't the banks look at that too?
Absolutely. So that's where it's tricky. So
that's why the Playbook is a good idea. Just have a couple extra options in your back pocket.
So our current house hack is actually a BRRRR hack. Yeah, that's what, and we did those in the beginning, and they were great to get started in.
Yeah.
And great to get your foot in the water, and now you're an investor.
I gotta say, it was a pain in the butt as far as the paperwork went, as far as I was concerned. Or is that just because we had everything in?
We had everything in trust. That was a whole other thing.
I have never hated paperwork so much in my life, and I've written a thesis before. I was like, I thought it was all done, and then it was like, no, you need like 10 more documents.
This is why it's good. It gets good at knowing, having relationships with folks at the bank. Yeah. Guys, we take a loan out through our LLC for our house that our LLC doesn't even own because it's deeded to a land trust. So, and the banks over their 100 years, they said they have never done this before, and they were making those exceptions for us.
Yes. I think we did 3 or 4. Either way, I'm glad we don't do those anymore. Now it's just paying the bank.
Yeah, and that's what's really, really neat. We do love that. Do you have a separate LLC for each property? No, we do not. What we do is we actually have, we do have multiple LLCs, but what we'll do is we'll put each property into a trust. And now that trust is going to have a beneficiary, it's going to have a trustee. Now the beneficiary is the one who receives the benefit of the trust. Well, that's our LLC. So if you can imagine a big circle, that's your LLC. Then all the little circles around it that all point back to that big circle, those are all your land trusts. They're all coming back to your LLC. So therefore, it does give you a level of privacy, and it keeps everything really smooth for accounting too. So there's not multiple LLCs, and usually they've got yearly fees and things like that too. So it really prevents you from having too many LLCs and becoming a tax nightmare for your accountant, which costs you a lot more money too.
Right, and I've also had the question of, like, do you have separate bank accounts for every single property? And I just can't even imagine. That would just be craziness.
Yeah, no, we just set it up to one. If we have really good accountants, and we do have QuickBooks, and everything is done electronically with Cozy. So it's very easy to kind of keep track of every little thing that's going on with each property. And with our bookkeeper / CPA, they give us a really good breakdown of every property and what's going on.
And you'll know when you get to that point where you actually need that help. Because for a while I did all of it, and then all of a sudden it was just...
So where you do need a separate account legally is if you are renting and you have your deposit. You cannot keep that in the account with your ledger money. So that has to be a separate account for your deposits. So if you do have a security deposit you're collecting from a tenant, that's supposed to be into a separate account from where all your other money's going on. So if that's the case, that helps.
So another question was, how do you identify a genuine cash buyer to partner with you? This person's getting a lot of scams through Facebook.
Yes. So here's the best thing to attract a real cash buyer. If you're looking for buyers in your area, what I do is I actually get a property under contract. And then when I have a property, if it's an area that I'm not doing business in,
Sorry about that.
woo! If it's an area that we don't normally do business in, that's okay. I'll put that on Zillow, I'll put it on Craigslist, I'll put it on Facebook, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out there it's cash, and once I have a house, because what happens a lot of times people say, I'll see in all these groups, hit me up if you're a wholesaler, I want to put you on my list. Half those wholesalers are exactly what you said. Some of them could be scammers. Many of them are just wholesalers who don't have the money, but say they do have the money or know a guy who's got the money. So how I identify them is when I put a deal on the market, and I'm starting to get all these calls, right? Now I'm going to weed them out by asking a simple question. Do you have proof of funds?
That's really what I thought you were going to say. Proof of funds.
Yeah, so do you have proof of funds? If this house is $80,000, do you got your account with your name on it that's got plus $80,000 in it?
That's one thing I've learned. People with money that are serious investing or buying a house, they have it, they'll show you. There's no games, there's no playing around.
Yeah, and I'll be quite honest with you guys, with the deal that we're doing in Albany, we're wholesaling it to another investor. I had so many people originally call me in the house. I had a young lady call me. She said, I'm an investor. I said, okay, great. Do you have proof of funds?
She was pushy too. She sent over her application of sorts.
Oh, she was out of her mind.
A little nuts, but you're gonna get that. It's okay.
But what happened was when she actually reached out to me, I asked, do you have proof of funds? She's like, no, my partner does. I said, well, okay, before we go too much further, I'm gonna need to see something.
Yeah.
Showing this, your partner, who is this person? And then as she's trying to go back with me back and forth on the price, this is the price, it is what it is. The next person calls right away. And I said, do you have proof of funds? He was like, absolutely, I can send you anything you need. We do lots of these deals in the area. And I said, well, I've got a lot of phone calls. I just want to make sure I'm weeding out the folks who do and don't have money. He was like, nope, not a problem for us. I could show you proof of anything you want right through our office. That's our buyer, guys. And once we build that relationship, that's the person I'm putting on my list. And then what's going to happen is, everybody else that calls, I'm going to ask them all the same questions. Do you have money or are you borrowing from somebody else? The ones who say, nope, I got my checking account ready to go, I'm making a list of those folks because now I'm building my buyer's list the right way and weeding out all the kind of riffraff, and that's the real way to do it. So they always say what goes first, the chicken or the egg. I always say get the house first. Get a house under contract, start advertising it. That's how you're going to build your buyer's list.
Yeah, and I think the other tip that you've shared I think would be helpful is to not be greedy. We've talked about that a lot too. It's like, yes, you want to make some money, but he's brought up a good point where, you want to present the deal where you're going to get somebody and kind of build a good relationship. So now, like, we've got this investor who is getting this house tomorrow in the Albany area, and then when we find more properties, he knows that we're the real deal and that, you know, we're good people to work with.
So she brings up an awesome point. We like to leave plenty of meat on the bone.
Meat on the bone.
For our end buyer, the other investor. We could have sold this property for another $10,000 more, but we're making, I mean, it's a 5-figure check, guys. So I'm not gonna be mad at that. Now, I always say too, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. So being greedy, and when you're working with investors who are greedy, you don't even want to talk to them. Believe me, we deal with some of these people. I don't even, when they call, I don't even really want to pick up the phone, but I still do. When the folks where they want to see you win, and they want to see you make money, I guarantee you when I pick up, every time I call him, he answers on like the first or second ring every single time, because he knows there's a potential big check coming his way if he talks to me about some other properties that we have. So where I say structure the deal, make sure you do a real good research on what the after repair value is, the ARV. Run the 70% equation where it's times 70% minus repairs. Now that's what you're going to have to sell it for to your end buyer, so you got to get it for a little bit lower than that. Make sure you're leaving your end buyer plenty of room in the deal, so where they're going to be able to sell it, make a good profit. So when you do call them again on another deal, they are so happy to hear from you and can't wait to look at the next house. Versus, oh, it's him calling. Yeah, I'm busy. I'm not even answering that. What do you want to have happen? It's a relationship business, and this is the long-term thing we built. So we could have made a lot more money. I chose, and Jen chose, to do the right thing, and that's to have a good, solid, trusting relationship.
Absolutely. What is your favorite beverage?
Water. I drink 1 Pepsi maybe a day. Usually I do it when I'm going live for some reason, but water.
Yeah,
water.
that's like a weird quarantine habit, I feel like you picked up.
I go on these little streaks and then I won't touch it for years.
But if we were to go out for a night on the town, what would be your drink of choice?
Jack and Coke. There you go.
But if we went to the Revelry, it would not be.
No, there's one special place that makes special drinks, and they're really good.
Okay, the other day we were chatting, and you shared with me the speed bump analogy, and how we're talking about. I even posted on my personal Instagram today that it's kind of like the February funk. People kind of just feel a little bit more down. It's cold. Maybe business deals are going backwards, and sometimes in life, it's very comparable to a speed bump. And you shared with me your take on that, and I just wanted you to kind of elaborate.
Well,
it was interesting, and I'd never thought of it that way. Do you remember?
I guess, yeah, I do. I think that we've been talking to a lot of friends, other investors, and it seems like some folks, just not even the investing field, but that winter funk, a lot of people have it, and it's a real thing. If you don't have outside sports that you love to do in the wintertime, and you're trapped inside, it does get a little bit tedious at times. But if you do have the carrot that you're chasing, I always like to say, it still keeps you very, very focused on what the big goal is. So my speed bump analogy is when you're going to have obstacles come in life, whether it's your job, whether it's real estate investing, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, I approach it like a speed bump. And when you approach a speed bump, a lot of times folks just want to, it's very challenging. I don't put the car in park and sit there and have a pity party for myself and cry. Maybe you got to slow down a little bit, recognize what's going on, go over the bump, and then just proceed back to normal speed again. And that's what these obstacles are in your life, guys. It's not the end. So if you have a real estate deal go backwards, or maybe you had some type of issues with your day job, the people who lose are the people who quit. And so if you don't quit and you just keep on plugging away, you're eventually going to win, and you're going to get to where your goal is. So I always say, don't put it in park and cry for too long.
But also, you can't fly over it and totally ignore it either. Because if you fly over a speed bump, you could pop a tire, or you know what I mean?
You could crash.
You could crash. So, it's just such a cool. I had never thought of it like that, and I'm a huge, literature dork and whatnot. But that just analogy of slowing down, recognizing, and then continuing moving forward. And sometimes you need to park and cry for a second. I've been there. He is just a little different breed. I'm trying to get him to maybe there's a book inside him or something about just handling emotions, because, the other question I was going to ask you is, do you get upset when we lose deals?
No.
And because apparently yesterday, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, move forward. I didn't put the car in park and cry, right?
Yeah, we lost 2 deals yesterday, guys. It doesn't make a difference because we still have more deals in the no worries. We still have a lot more deals closing, and that's going to come with the territory. You know, we had one deal where the seller reached out to us. We came upon a verbal agreement. There was the wild card was the other brother,
that one.
and you know, it cost us $15,000. Not the end of the world. Would I love to have that check? Sure.
Yeah.
But you know what? Somebody's still going to get the job done, and that's to get their house sold, and that's the name of the game. Guess what? When I got the call saying it's not working out, I still congratulate them. So I said, you know, at the end of the day, thank you for at least thinking of me and reaching out to me.
Yeah.
And the biggest job was you guys got the house sold. So whether I buy it or somebody else does, I'm just glad that you've got this fixed. Sure, would I love to make a little bit of money? Great. But you know what? We've had somebody think of us, get their house sold and solve their problem.
Yeah, you almost
now
have to
the
look
conversation I had, because they have 2 houses they want to
bigger
sell
picture,
shortly.
right?
The big picture, he says, you know what? I really appreciate that. And when we're ready to sell both of our houses, you're the first person we're going to call. So, you know what?
Yeah.
That makes you feel good.
So don't, even though like it might sting a little, and you get to his level of just not even like just brush your shoulder off and keep going.
So it's like I lost 50 cents.
Right.
And it's $15,000, guys. It's a lot of money.
It is a
but
lot.
I treat it like it's 50 cents because you know what? Money's going to come to us in various times and amounts over the
Name
course
that book.
over the course of your lifetime, over the course of your year. If you're going to have a deal go backwards and your whole world is going to just be gone from it, you kind of have that mentality of, guys, maybe you're going to still get that deal down the road, just maybe not right now. Because one of those 2 deals we still have. It's just not going to be now.
Right.
I
love Ken's question, and Ken is one of the ones that won our free our raffle that we're doing, so we're going to connect with him on Thursday, I think.
Awesome.
So Ken's asking, are your kids old enough to participate in the business? Yes. Can I say, I'm going to answer that real quick, and then you can chime in too. But our kids have been part of this since they were in my belly. I remember distinctly cleaning out a house, one of our favorites, and it was, you know, the friends were over there and we're just cleaning it out, and it was like August. I was like pretty pregnant with her because she was due in January, and it was just a memory of that. And then literally ever since, I mean, she's been running around and he's been running around every single house that we've had that they could physically go into, you know, going to the houses with mom and dad. We've got pictures of them growing up. It's kind of cool. So,
and I will say they've been through a lot of experiences at a very young age, and it's taught them so much. When we had 4 years ago, we had a bunch of rentals that we were converting to rent to own. Once a tenant was moving out, we give them the option if they want to buy it. If they don't want to, we're gonna, at the end of their lease, they're gonna be able to move out. We're gonna sell it to a tenant buyer. We did a walk through this property like a month before, and there was stuff everywhere. And I was like, you know, this is strange. There's stuff everywhere, and they're gonna be moving in a month. They better start packing. So, long story short, once they move out,
I think they hoped they were gonna stay there, and that just didn't work out.
Once they moved out, I take my daughter and my friend who's one of their contractors, and we started doing a walkthrough of the empty house. There was still stuff everywhere. So we start getting upstairs, and at the time my daughter's probably about 4 years old, and she looks down, she's like, Dad, I've got bugs on my legs. And I look down, and up each leg she must have had 50 to 100 fleas on each leg, just coming up her legs. I look down at my legs. I have 50 to 100 fleas on each leg coming up mine. My friend did the same thing.
But you like brushed her off at first, didn't you? You're like, oh,
No.
buddy.
We ran out of there like cartoons where like our feet were doing one of these, but we haven't moved yet.
Oh, okay.
We go outside and I'm doing this and fleas are just flying off of her. It was the most disgusting thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And she still remembers that house as being the bug house.
The bug house.
And so that had a lot of challenges. But they were raised in it. That's the point. She remembers that stuff.
Value of hard work now too, because I remember, again, same year we're switching things over with one of the first houses, which I'm so excited. I love this house. I was just doing a light clean through because it was pretty good to go, but the little things here and there. And I remember, so I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I just brought some of their toys and I put them in one of the rooms, and I just went to town. I was like cleaning all the cupboards out and everything, and you know, I have those pictures on my phone, so that's kind of cool to look back. And now that they're older, like they really are understanding things, and especially the big house that we're fixing up over in Irondequoit. I mean, they've fallen in love with that house. I mean, they've helped pick out things and they've run around. So I just think it's what your world is their world, and you know, if you're negative about things, then they'll be negative about it. But if you make it like a fun, exciting thing that we're all gonna go do, then that's all they know.
Right.
And Brittany, the girls on our team, they've been investing, and her kiddos are little, and she's sharing constantly because I get that a lot. Well, how do you do it with 2 little kids?
Sorry.
Okay. And you just do it, guys. Like it's another excuse, or you make it happen. So.
Well, and I think that's what's fun is bringing the kids with us. They've got special names for each house. They've got memories from each house. Some of them, they've been so long ago they don't even remember anymore.
The one in Tonawanda was a little bit of a drive, so we made it, kind of fun where we got to go out there and we grabbed hot dogs and then we brought it to the house, and then they were jumping on the trampoline. So it was just, there's always a little memory there, and they're gonna remember. He remembers growing up with rental properties, and I didn't. I remember like hardware store memories for me, because where my dad lived basically was his store. So.
And I did the rental properties where my dad did, where they were in tough neighborhoods, and we're doing clean outs in the middle of summer, and for one reason or another, we're going to the houses, painting and doing all the things, and so I grew up in it. Our kids are gonna grow up in it too, and it's just fun. And when they're old enough, the dream would be for them to do this, so we could retire.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's gonna be tricky to not live near them. I haven't quite even begun to think about what they want to move.
Yeah, don't even talk about that right now, because they're gonna live next to us always.
Right. Okay, so is there something that you've wanted to learn but haven't yet? Anything, whether it's real estate or just something different in life.
I'd love to learn another language.
One in particular?
It's gonna sound crazy, but Mandarin.
Where is this coming from?
I've always,
Okay. I didn't know that. I learned something new about you.
Yes, there you go.
Mandarin, okay. All right.
First thing that popped in my head, so there you go, you got it.
Laundry or dishes?
Neither.
Typical.
Wow.
You can find him grilling, though. Do you have a favorite real estate deal to date?
The next one.
The next one that we do.
Yes.
Okay. And what is the best thing that has happened so far up to date?
The best thing?
Mm-hmm.
Marrying you. Having kids.
Oh, gee.
Is
that to make up for the dishes or laundry?
No, it's the truth though. I hate doing both laundry and dishes. But yeah, and I guess my favorite property, because I really want to say, everyone carries a unique story. Everyone's got a little special place in my heart.
I thought they had like one favorite though.
It's like having kids. They're all your favorite. They're just all different.
That's true.
So
yeah,
I take them that way. They're like kids to me. So they're all my favorites, just in different ways.
Is there a song that best describes you?
Well, the first one that came to my mind is that if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. But it's got a lot of other crap in there too.
Okay, well, maybe just a line from that song.
Yes,
okay.
The chorus is really good.
Yeah. What did you want to be when you were younger, when you grew up? So if someone was like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I wanted to be a race car driver. Was my goal when I was a little kid. And then, it's such a hard thing to get into. I always really loved real estate. I always was intrigued by it. And when you were younger, you get to read about how all these people are making millions of dollars in real estate, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I was older. I just knew I wanted to have the finer things in life. I did not grow up with that silver spoon in my mouth. Almost quite the opposite of that. Anything my parents had, they had to work for it. They weren't rich at all, and there was plenty of times where we struggled growing up and had holes in shoes and didn't have a ton of cool clothes and got picked on for it. But I think that's what makes you tougher. And it makes me have that burning desire to want. And that's why, I'm not bragging, but I bought myself a new Porsche for my 30th birthday. And because I wanted that car, I was in a position in my life where I could buy that. But if I never had that...
Fun car.
If I never had that burning desire, it never would have happened. So I think that's really... Mm-hmm.
All right, last and final question here, because we do have another meeting coming up. What is your best advice for somebody who's brand new into real estate, hasn't done their first deal yet?
So I guess the real thing that's the truth is to get good mentors, good coaches find the people who are successful and copy what they're doing, and find out what it is that you want to do. So, and if you want to find out what's going to make money, because there's lots of people who are doing real estate who aren't making money.
Right.
And that's why you want to find the niches that really make money. You want to find, the person I got to learn it from 20 years ago, I think he's on his 4th private jet.
Unreal.
4th private jet. And he even laughs and says, you know what, having a private jet is a terrible investment. I don't recommend them. However, they are awesome. And so that's who I've got to learn from.
A lot of fun coupons by the
and tons of fun coupons. So that's really what I think is, you want to get yourself around people who are doing what you're doing. If your goal is to start buying and selling properties, if your goal is to make money in real estate and then have a lifestyle to where you're not tied to your W-2 job, which most of y'all hate your jobs. I know you do. Maybe you haven't had the talk with yourself. Most of you like it enough to tolerate it, but are you truly living the life that you want? And what I mean by that is, you guys only have one shot. You get 365 days a year. You don't have, it doesn't go on forever. So my whole thought process growing up was, well, why not me? Rich people have to be somebody, so then why not me? And then I made it my goal to have that and become that. So part of that is, my friend said it in our interview last week, is when you get around mentors and coaches, instead of taking the steps, it's the elevator, to the top, to success. And so that's really what's
You
kind
can
of...
take the stairs. It's going to take you a long time doing it alone, but when you surround yourself with the right people, you get there.
Yeah, and you get right to the top a lot faster. And you're going to learn from their mistakes. You're going to learn from their wins. So every win or loss, it's still an experience that you should take something from that and learn from that experience. We've had lots of great experiences that we learned some from. We've also had lots of bad experiences that we've learned from too. And not just our own, other people who are doing what we do. That's the good thing about having the ability to network with so many of you guys, is that we all learn from each other. And, the game is to make everybody successful. Because I've always had this theory, I don't want to be the only guy in a Lamborghini. I want all my friends to have them too, so we all race around and have a good time together. So that's the whole point of it. Maybe your Lamborghini is a boat. Maybe it's vacations with your family. Whatever it is, figure out what that is, your end game, where do you want to be, and don't sell yourself short. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a mentor at 20, 21 years old who was at a $6 million mansion in Dallas, Texas, and getting to live in his guest house, which was stunning. It really taught me so much about that lifestyle and so much about business, because he grew up very, very poor, never graduated high school, was working at a gas station, just happened to meet the right person at the right time in his life who was a huge mentor to him, and the rest was history. So really, when I started learning that, it's not about education, it's really about what you learn after, and that's what's huge.
And I think too, if you haven't gotten your mind space right, like Think and Grow Rich, I don't know how many times you just quoted that book and you probably didn't even realize you're doing it. It makes me think of how he says that you have to give something to receive it. So, a lot of us are, well, I'm working all day and then I'm tired, so I come home and I watch Netflix, or on the weekends I need time to hang out with my friends or all that. But the successful people switch that mindset up, and they're willing to not do the Netflix binges all the time, or not go out and hang out with their friends at the bars. They're going to put in the time and make the time in between those hours, because that's what we did for a very long time. And now that we're doing this full time, it's, blocking that time out and still, working hard. But, now we're not, you're especially not like stuck in an office job that we were very grateful for. But then, okay, now you finally got out of work, and now we got to go run to this house, and now we got to do this house, and whatever, when are we going to do this? And oh my gosh, your day off Friday, and it was hard. It was a lot of sacrificing. And I think that is the tricky part to share, because we don't have footage of it. It's not happening right now, but it happened, and I feel like it's important to share those parts.
But how many times would I fall asleep listening to watching a video, and I got my earpiece in and I'm falling asleep constantly? Or I'd wake up at 4 a.m. because we had young kids, and I wanted to have an hour to learn about real estate investing, and the only way I could do that is if I woke up before her, before the kids, before anybody else can, and not go anywhere, just take my iPad, put my earpiece in it, and while I'm in bed, listen for an hour before. And I would do that, then I'd go work 12, 13 hours that day, and then come home exhausted. And when I was in the car my 15-minute drive there, 15-minute drive back, I also squeaked in another half an hour there of listening. So my thought process was, if I could still put in that hour and a half every day without having to go too crazy, that's a lot of time by the end of the week, month, and year. And that's how I still sped up my education so quickly, because what I learned really was coming out of a lot of books. But then what really jumped up what we did is when we started getting in some mastermind groups and getting some real good coaches, and that's when everything just catapulted. So,
Judd says he wants to race around in his Lamborghinis with you.
what color do you want, Judd? I'm thinking I want red.
What do you think? You know you're getting red one.
I don't know. Black on a Lamborghini just looks so bad. It just looks
so bad, like it's so good.
Yeah, so good. So
good. Yeah, so put in the time. Got some sacrifices to make, but you know, is it your future you're sacrificing, or is it the now? And just little bits here, like little tiny bits. You know,
well,
it's not.
Wait a minute. There would be so many times where we would get into not a heated argument, but we'd get in an argument first dating because here it is. It's the summer. Our summer is so short here in upstate New York. It's crazy.
Disgusting.
And instead of being out on the boat, on the lakes, and all the wonderful things, we're stuck inside some crap house doing all the stuff.
Yeah.
So, and there's been times where when we were first getting together, she's like, yeah, I want to be on the boat today. I'm like, yeah, I do too, but this is going to pay dividends down the road. And when in the very beginning, you might have that challenge of recognizing that.
And your spouse or significant other might stomp her feet or his feet a little bit because I didn't see the vision at first. I didn't quite understand it. You know, I just knew all my friends were having barbecues and I wanted to be with them or my family. And obviously family's important, but, you know, looking back, he was right. So, you know, just some food for thought there. Definitely, if you have a big dream, then start taking those small actual steps there. And Judd says light, maybe.
So sick. So good.
All
That'd
right.
be another one.
I think that's all for now.
Did we have that recorded? Did you guys hear her say I was right?
I don't think we did record
Wait a minute. Same thing about Bitcoin.
Oh gosh, that's a different day. But we love you all. Questions, keep them coming. We'll do this again. We just love connecting with you all, and we wish you nothing but success in 2021. Keep your chin up. The sun's gonna come back out tomorrow, and keep on keeping on, guys.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. These are great. And if you've got some more questions, we want to have the Ask Joe and Ask Jenn show to where we could come through once a week and you could send us your questions and we're going to go here live and answer them and you guys could shoot more in the comments
last week was Khalif, this week it was Joe, so we'll see what happens next week.
We got some fun stuff coming, guys. So
all right, you're welcome. Say hi, Tyler. Bye.
Well, you guys are awesome. We actually have to hop on a mastermind
we got the
in 4 minutes. So thank you guys so much.
Put the work in.
All right, see you guys.